experience that we can learn from some developing countries, and we're glad to be joined today actually by Dr. Mohamed Koumy, Professor of Economics. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Koumy. Let's first start off by the difference between growth and development.
Okay. Growth is the whole increase in GDP, or the whole increase in a country's production. However, growth, as I will show you, can sometimes does not lead to development. If we will see in graph number 1 and the slide that I brought you, you will see that the growth in Egypt was mainly witnessed by the upper class, but not felt by the lower decile in the economy. You will see, hopefully they will present the slide, you will see that the lower decile in the economy had increased or improved very little across the years, across the last 20 years, although the growth in Egypt was picking up. But this is what we are talking about today, the lower category or the lower decile of the population, the poor and the ultra poor.
Right, sir. For a country like Egypt, how can we start our development phase on the ground, practically on the ground?
Okay, this is very important because development policies usually are done in a macro way without evidence from the ground. And then an example for this, China has started a poverty program called Dibao Poverty Program, and it started long time ago in 1994. They spent a lot on it, and the program was, China announced that by 2020 they will have no poverty. So the program was based on giving some cash payments to the very poor. However, now 10 years or 11 years after the program has started, and because it was not based on quality data, they found that 1/3 of what has been paid in the program went to the poor, to the ultra poor, while the 2/3 of the program money actually was wasted on other things. You can say inefficiency, bureaucracy, corruption, other uses rather than the targeted poor.
Right,
so
if you can let us
allow us to, we have some breaking news
Please.
here. A civil helicopter plane crashed with 200 board, fell on Sinai, and we will be updating you with, it's a plane rather than a helicopter. It's
right,
a civil plane. And we will be updating you with more details.
The passengers are not confirmed dead yet until now. They are losing contact with the passenger plane. Until we get more details, we will be updating you with the Russian plane that fell off Sinai this morning. As far as we know, that it collapsed early in the morning with no confirmed news.
Aboard.
Yes, no confirmed news on the passengers aboard the plane until now. Dr. Koumy, we were talking about development, and after a new government took over earlier this month, and a complete reshuffle of the cabinet, and several projects were taking place last year and this year in no time. How do you assess the economic status of Egypt now, and especially in the light of the economic roadmap that we are approaching its end. I mean, we're looking forward by completing our political and economic roadmap once we continue and get finished with the parliamentary elections.
Okay, so I really feel sorry for the different ministers who are dealing with development in Egypt because it is a very difficult task. And actually, as polls show, that Egyptians' definition of democracy, or what happened after the revolution, 25th of January, they defined democracy as socio-economic equality, 80% of them, according to the polls. So how we see democracy, we see it as kind of improving the socio-economic conditions and more equality. However, having different governments, of course, was very difficult to have a sustainable strategy and to have policies that continue to be implemented regardless of who is in position. We see this very clearly in different ministries. They have fantastic projects. I worked with many of them. They have fantastic projects, but they stop after the minister leaves, unfortunately. It is a very difficult task to be a minister without having a mandate or without knowing that you are staying for 1 year or 2 years, because you cannot actually plan and organize the house from inside and plan ahead. You're just going to be responsive only to the different, this crisis happened here, crisis happened there, and you just have to be working on a temporary basis. But talking back to development policies cannot be done without appropriate or quality data. And that's what happened in China. They found that for every 10 yuans that were spent on that program, only 1 to 2.5 yuans went to the poor. You can imagine the waste. And a very good comment was said by a senior poverty official in Beijing. It's called Liu Yongfu. We need to improve the quality of our data and really solve the issue of who we are supporting. So the quality of the data, to know who is poor and how poor they are, is very important to have good development policy, and we do not have this in Egypt. So you can imagine any development policies that will happen in the future will not give the required objective or will not alleviate poverty as we wish.
Right, so many countries around the world faced serious problems on their way to development. What countries do you think we can follow their experience?
Okay, I'm talking about quality of data and talking about collecting microdata on households in Egypt, which happens different ministries. I found that a Ministry of Solidarity, they have some data collected. The Ministry of Planning, they have fantastic programs, but are they going to continue? Are they going to be only implemented for the current minister and then stop afterwards? This is the problem. It's not a big plan to have to follow one country or another. We just need to know what do we have, what kind of poverty do we have. We need to collect the data properly on household level and implement our programs. And of course there is a way to implement programs, which is randomized controlled trials. I talked with people as the Minister of Planning, for instance, when they were talking about the new program for hiring teachers. They They have very good plan of having standardized tests for all the teachers, and they are going to try it on Egypt. You do not actually try programs at the national level. You have to try them in an experiment or in a trial. So you need to try the program just on a certain sample of the population and then see if it is working or not. Not the whole country should not be an experimental location.
How do you assess the importance of establishing a good parliament that issue regulations and amend and legislate good laws that would facilitate foreign investment and amend the bad laws? I mean, are we in bad need really for the formation of a good government to be able to assist in the economic process, the speed of the economic process?
The parliament, as they say, it's hard to find an honest man in the parliament. This is a British saying a long time ago, but parliament is very important despite of
because one of the obstacles is the laws.
Yeah. But
what about the new investment law?
The new investment law, what about it?
Do you think it's suitable to attract more investment, more foreign investment specifically?
Foreign investments, okay, that's a very important point you raised, by the way, because if we are talking about growth and development, we look at South Korea, we look at other countries that achieved high growth, economic growth. You will find that their economic growth depended on savings, not foreign direct investments. So what's the saving rate in Egypt? If we can go...
Do you mean saving, bank saving?
Yes, us saving, the population saving, one of the lowest in the world. We save very little. Don't tell me that we have less than India as per capita, because we are not. So all the governments are targeting foreign direct investment. That's very good. But we need to increase our domestic saving, because this is
so how can you give incentives to the people
exactly
to increase their savings?
Point. And actually, I don't know if we can see the graph on the last graph on the slide 3. It shows us how many of the Egyptian population have access to
bank accounts.
And you'll see a comparison with other developing countries like India, Kenya, South Africa, and of course some developed, and even United Arab Emirates. You will see that in Egypt we have unfortunately almost 10% only of the adults in Egypt have access to financial institutions. Among the 40% poorest, the poorest 40% in Egypt, only 3 or 4% have access or have accounts
or have
with
bank
financial
accounts.
Exactly. While if you look, for instance, at Kenya, more than half of the population have access to accounts. India, more than half as well. Kenya is actually 75% of the population have access to banks. Of course, United States, they are almost 90% have access to financial.
But what kind of incentive can you give to the people to start forming new accounts, having accounts, among the majority of the Egyptian population?
You need to understand that banks regard the poor as not very profitable until now. But collecting or pool all these accounts together will be helpful for the banks. And you need to come up with new ideas and new schemes to incentivize the regular person to have a bank account or to have an account with a formal financial institution.
Right.
We need to understand the mentality, which I'm doing now, my research in rural Egypt. We are trying to understand the mentality. We are trying to understand the reaction, for instance, to interest rates, their opposition to
from the religious point of view.
From a religious point, from a culture actually, because the Mufti, the earlier Mufti, Sheikh Ali Goma, and before him, Sheikh Tantari said interest rates are not haram. So it's the cultural point of view. And we are trying to come up with a scheme which is based on ROSCA, Al-Jama'iyya, it's a village level Jama'iyya, which is credit union actually, to help the poor bank with official or formal financial institutions.
Right. Dr. Koumy, are you with lifting subsidies? Do you think it's a good solution to be able to develop with economy? Because we have tried several times this particular process, and so far it proved that we're moving from worst to worst. So if you could explain to the viewers what's the idea of lifting subsidies and why do some governments sometimes take it as a fast solution or an easy solution, and what damage, if it could it be able to affect the society?
Okay, this is very important because subsidies, we are all subsidized. The 5-star hotels are subsidized, are paying subsidized bill for electricity, but it all comes back to data. We do not know. This is why governments, when they are thinking about lifting subsidies, they will lift it from everyone. We do not know who's poor and who's not. We do not have this kind of individual data to decide that I am poor, I deserve to get some subsidy for the bread or petrol, or electricity even, while the other people are not. They just started this with the bread scheme, which hopefully is working well, and they collected. They also did this with the smart card for petrol, but is this linked to real data on the individual, at the individual level, saying that my income is less than $2 a day or less than 1,000 pounds a week, so I deserve subsidy? It's not linked because we do not have this kind of data, unfortunately. So lifting a subsidy will always create chaos because it's not coupled with good policies for the poor and the needy ones. So you will lift it from everyone will be upset, and back again you will shy away from lifting it.
Right, Dr. Mohamed Koumy, Professor of Economics, many thanks for your presence and for your insights.
Thank you very much.